I remember volunteering on a board that reviewed portfolios submitted to Sheridan College's animation program back in the day, and usually one spot where really strong applicants would generally trip up on is with perspective drawing. That or figure drawing sometimes. Today, Akio Watanabe, the director and character designer behind the Monogatari series, and I will take a look at some perspective and animation drawings sent in from viewers of this channel and try to address some commonly seen mistakes and to see how they can be improved. But before we start, a quick word from today's sponsor, Hbada. So if you're like me who sits down for 8 to 10 hours a day working and relaxing, a good chair is one of the best investments one can get. I've been using this new Hbada E3 chair and it's been doing wonders for my back. This is a chair that fits you exactly, no matter your posture. It has the world's first ergonomic lumbar support system with floating wings. You can also move and adjust these waist wraps and also adjust the pressure distribution to get the best fit for you, reducing back pain no matter the posture. The 4D headrest on the E3 can also be adjusted up and down, front and back, rotated to fit different heights and sitting postures. The headrest ergonomically follows the vertebrae of the neck to help relieve pressure caused by prolonged sitting. The E3 also comes with armrests that are fully adjustable in 6 dimensions to fully support your arms and relax your shoulders. And of course, the backrest is fully adjustable. The nylon and yarn fabric is breathable and offers durable support. And also, there's a footrest. The Hbada E3 is a great looking chair that combines style with ergonomic support. Ergonomic chairs are clinically proven to reduce physical strain by up to 35%, and it can help you stay more focused and work more efficiently. Compared with similar chairs such as the Herman Miller Aeron, the E3 is both much more affordable and comes with much more features that allows for finer adjustment and has more recline range as well. Check out the link below for more information on the Hbada E3 and use the coupon code for a nice little discount. Thank you Hbada for supporting this channel. This is by artist Sammy, and this is part of his portfolio being submitted to his university that he's applying for. I think at first glance this is a really interesting piece. I really like the storytelling that is happening in this drawing. The pose with the mother holding the child's hand is fantastic. However, the more you look at it, the more weird perspective issues pop up. Let's hear what Watanabe-san thinks about it.
パッと見た印象がかなり引きなんで、寂しい感じを受けますけど、イラストとしてはね、これを一枚のイラストとしたらもうちょっと寄ってあげたらいいのかなっていう気持ちはあるのと、これは多分パースを意識しすぎて、奥のものも大きく描かれちゃってて、例えばなんですけど、この人間に対してこの家がちょっとちっちゃく見えるとか、もうちょっとパースを潰してあげるともっと良くなると思うんですけど。
はいはい。そうですね。家がちょっと長く。
そう、長くなっちゃうんで、もっとここもっと潰してあげたら良くなるんじゃないかなって思う。
はい。
I think overall, we both agreed that we really like the storytelling in this drawing, but the perspective issues often get in the way of things. To understand the issue with the perspective, we should try and recreate the perspective lines. Since this is a simple one-point perspective drawing, we can retrace the lines in the pavement stonework, extending the lines here to try and find the vanishing point and the horizon line. Doing a couple of these, it looks like our vanishing point is around here and the horizon line are around here. It looks like Sammy's horizontal perspective lines are also here, marked by the pavement stones. So drawing that in, we get something like his original perspective grid. So the biggest issue I see is that the squares in this perspective grid aren't foreshortening enough. When objects move back in space, they shorten and become seemingly smaller. And an important part of improving in perspective drawing is to get the amount that an object foreshortens correct. If you just go outside and take a look at a street, things foreshorten much more than you might imagine. For example, here is one of my layout from Negapose the Angler, and this was based off a real Tokyo street. And I also think that is why Watanabe-san also thinks that this house looks way too long. And I think that in that space that house sits, you can actually fit a whole neighborhood with like 5 or 6 houses. A tip to make sure that you foreshorten correctly is to use the cross method. Let's get a square as our base shape and we can color it in. Then we bisect it in the middle with a temporary line. Then we take another temporary line from each corner and make sure that they intersect at the point in the middle of the opposite side. Then, where those eventually touch the original vertical perspective lines, we draw the horizontal perspective line. And we just repeat this. Now we have a much more realistic perspective grid that foreshortens properly. Using this new grid, we can redraw the parts of the drawing with the perspective issues, starting with the house. For me, the biggest issue is with that house on the left. The original was just way too long. Drawing them properly foreshortened gives the drawing a greater sense of depth and realism. I think the rest of the drawing is mostly fine. The characters are also really good. I might just retouch them up a bit so just to get the kid's leg facing the right direction and adjust the length of the limbs a bit so that they don't look too long. With that adjusted, I think this drawing is looking much better. Watanabe-san also said that the drawing looked really lonely with how far back the camera is, and I think I have to agree. Getting a good composition in your perspective drawings is also a very important aspect of perspective drawing, especially if it's part of a portfolio. So for me, I might just reframe this a bit tighter. So if this is going to be a landscape piece, maybe something around here, or for a more portrait piece, something around here. I think reframing it this way will make it a much stronger piece. The next piece is also by Sammy, and it looks like a nice 3-point perspective drawing. I also really like this. I think Sammy's storytelling in this drawing is really good. And on a technical level, I think this is also a pretty good piece. But there are some things that stand out to me. First, let's hear what Watanabe-san thinks of the drawing.
パースとかは、別に狂ってるとも思わないし、全然、ここまでかけてたら全然いいような気がしますけど。
なるほど。
そんな気はしますね。
なんか、でもなんという、腕が短く。
まあでも、美みたるものかなと思って。そういうメリハリをつけるというか、リアルな映像じゃないじゃないですか。やっぱアニメのいいところって誇張することなので、この人は多分ここにちょっと迫力を持たせるために手を大きく書いて、ちょっと緊迫感みたいなのを見せてんのかなみたいな、そういう主張ってとても大事なんで、アニメって。
なるほど。
なんかいいような気がします。書きたいものがちゃんとあるのがいいかなっていう感じ。形をきっちりとってもなんか、何を描きたいのかよくわからない絵よりはもうなんか何を描きたいのかがはっきりしてる方がいいような気がしますね。
Overall, I think he really liked the style of the drawing and the subject matter. So let's try and backward engineer the perspective grid from here. So here's a quick tip. For something like this, I like to expand the canvas a bit, and I recommend you do this when the vanishing points are off the page and when you just need to. I remember back when I used to animate on paper, we would have to tape the pieces of paper together to achieve the same thing. So looking at the perspective that this overhead light lays on, it feels like it's way too straight. And it's almost going to single perspective territory if we forgo the vertical vanishing point. With how extreme the angle is here, the two vanishing points on the horizon should be much closer to each other to give off that sense of extreme perspective. And for me, I would probably draw those perspective lines around here or so. And then we can draw in the vertical perspective. And these look fine to me. And with our grid figured out, we can redraw the light fixture in the right position. As for the characters, I think this night character is drawn really well. Their head conforms to the perspective of the scene, and the eye direction is really good as well. With the main character, I think there are some issues with her not sitting in the perspective properly. It looks like to me her upper torso is a bit too big, her waist and thighs a bit too small, and the hands feel a bit too big to me as well. The arms are also feeling kind of short to me. I think drawing a character in such an extreme 3D perspective is very challenging. And something that I like to do back when I first started doing perspective drawing is to put the character inside a 3D box. By making sure the box fits in the scene's perspective, when we draw our character, it also reminds us to match the character's perspective with the boxes. So now let's redraw that character. I would make the torso a tad smaller while making her bottom half a bit larger. We can also do these curved structural lines to help make the perspective easier to understand and see. With her arm, I would make them much thinner and longer, and I would push up that elbow slightly. I would also make her hand slightly smaller just to fit the rest of the body more. So to me, her pose would look something like this. I think this is still a very strong drawing, and thank you, Sammy, for sending these in. The next drawing is sent by channel viewer Avery, and this is part of his post-graduation portfolio. I believe he is starting his job search after graduating recently. So just looking at this, I think this is a really nice drawing. The storytelling here is really strong, and the 3-point perspective of the scene with the fisheye distortion really adds to the dynamism of the drawing. But I do think the more we start to look at the drawing, certain issues with perspective start cropping up. First, let's hear what Watanabe-san thinks.
この人、真ん中の人が、なんか背がちょっと小さくに見えますよね。
まあ、見えますけど、なんかね、いきなりいいよ、これ。
いいだと思います。
海外の方なの？
そうですね、海外。結構、いいじゃん。
いいです、いいです。日本のアニメだったら、もうこのままやってってもらいたい感じですね。海外の方が多分パースとかリアルなの厳しいと思うんで、日本だったらもうこのままやってったらなんかもっと伸びそう。すごく上手くなりそう。もうまあ今でもだいぶ上手いですけど、こういうのを書こうっていう意識が大事。すごいもうこれを書いてる時点でかなり意識が高くていいと思います。このままやってってもらいたい感じしますね。まあ実際キャラ表があるわけじゃないから、まあ真ん中の子はちょっと小さく見えるけど、この子は別に身長が小さい子だったら全然これで OK で、で、一番手前のこの頭の手前のやつがちょっとあれかもしれないですね。真ん中の子の列の前にいるにしては大きすぎるし、手前の、この3人並んでる手前のこの前には合わないからこの子がちょっと、パースがちょっと合ってないような気がしますけど、でもとてもいいですよ。
I think we both really like the drawing, but there are some certain things that are hard to escape, such as the character looking really small in the frame. Again, like Watanabe-san said, she could just be really short, but to me, without seeing the design documents, I generally assume everyone is around average height. Anyways, first, let's recreate the perspective grid so that we have something to work from. Then, drawing a line from the top of the character to the left of the main character and the person on the right, we get an approximation of what her height should be if they were all similar in height. And then from there, we can quickly redraw her bows. The character in front of the main character also seems to be a bit out of place. She feels way too big and kind of standing to the main character's right a bit instead of straight in front. To get her position correct, I'll draw a quick guideline from our main character's head and use that to approximate where the front character's position should be. I also want to do a quick pass just to add some detail to the character. For me at least, some perspective issues don't become too apparent until the drawing is a bit more finished. Once you get some of the details in, it will become obvious if they look off, and doing that makes me feel like the character in front is still a bit too big and not in the right position, so we can just make a selection and adjust her size and position. And there we go. I think this is a much more technically stronger drawing. Alright, we'll take a look at one more drawing, again by Avery. This drawing is really great. I love the emotion and dynamism in all of the characters' poses. Let's see what Watanabe-san thinks.
でもすごいですね。これを書こうっていう意識がすごいです。 日本人の新人はこんなに書けないです。
そう
書けない。
まあ私はちょっとこの後ろの人がちょっと、なんていう、高くに見えますけど、これは、渡辺さんどう思いますか？
僕はそうです。多分これ、アイレベルが多分このあたりなんですよね。このあたりじゃないですか。で、天井の、天井が、ここまでなんかこう、なんだろう、パースがこう、なんて言うんだろう、こう、低く見えるというか、もうちょっとこう、上げて天井を描いてあげないと、天井が低く見えるというか、だからそれは感じますけど、でも全然、ここまで描けてたら、OK になっちゃいますね、僕な。
はいはいはい。
We both really like the drawing, but there are some weird perspective quirks. I personally think the crowd especially is too high in the frame, and Watanabe-san thinks the ceiling is too low. I think both of these might actually just stem from the same issue. So to start, let's recreate the perspective lines. This scene is a simple one-point perspective with fisheye distortion. Here is also a simple trick to help you draw and place different characters in your scene. First, let's draw out the main character. Then notice how the horizon line intersects with her chest area. Now let's draw the same character but a bit further back. And this time we make sure that the perspective line still intersects her chest area in this new drawing. Then let's draw the same character a bit further back. And we make sure that the perspective line still intersects with her chest area in this new drawing, while also keeping the ratio of her body both below and above the horizon line the same. So with the character, as long as the pose is the same, they will all intersect the same position at the horizon line no matter where they are in the scene. Using this principle, we can draw that crowd. Obviously, different people have different heights, so let's make sure to vary that as we draw. Everyone is also in a similar pose, a standing, jumping, or folding thing that they're doing, so this also makes things easier for us. The main character is probably jumping too based on how the secondary action of her hair and dress is moving. Alright, let's draw everyone in. Once everyone is drawn, I think we can see the issue with the original drawing. By shifting the crowd lower, I think we also resolve the issue with the ceiling looking too low as well. While this drawing might be technically better, I still love the emotion and the storytelling that Avery kept in his original drawing, so thank you Avery for sending these in. Anyways, that's it. I hope you guys learned something today. I am generally pretty busy, but I will check channel members' drawings if you can DM me it on Patreon or something. Thanks to Watanabe-san for helping with this, and thanks to everyone for watching and supporting the channel, especially the Patreon and YouTube members. Your support is greatly appreciated and helps keep this channel running. You can help out the channel at the link below, and members get extra content every month. Other than that, check out my socials, and I'll see you next time.